Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of my 354 and 404 Honda restoration videos. Today's video is all about airboxes. So when it comes to the airbox, I've already started here for I'm busy. This is an airbox from the Honda 354. The 404's got an identical airbox. And I've only got one airbox, so I'm missing one. And I have actually looked to see if I could locally find the airbox, and so far nothing's really come up. I know they're available on eBay and so on, but I always like a challenge. So my idea was to see if I can make a mold of this, make myself two nice carbon fiber airboxes, which will look a lot nicer than these plastic things. So here's an example of an airbox. This is not the airbox for 354 400. I don't know what this airbox is from. I think it might be a 500 or 554 or something. No idea. It's just an example. So I took the airbox. This is the example once again. And I mounted it down on a piece of wood. This one on here, I glued it. And then behind the holes, I put a thin piece of wood just to close the holes up. And as you can see, I've used wooden offcuts all around it to build up the height. And then I used normal body filler as you use in a car to seal that all off. So if you ask why I've taken the profile I have, well, you can see on the airbox there's an old seam that runs around here, and I've basically followed the old seam. So the original airbox is clearly made in a half and a half with a seam going around there. I'm going to follow the same pattern. So I have to put another round of Bondo on. This first round was just basically for getting the shape roughly. I have to put a second layer on there now just to get it smooth, and then I'll sand it correctly. So this will create my first part of the mold with a nice flange around it. Once that's done, I will then remove the airbox from this mounting, and I will flip it over and create the other side of the mold. So let's see how this process goes. I'm not new to fiberglassing and making molds and stuff. I'm not an expert at it, but I have done quite a bit. But it will be the first time I ever make one in carbon. I chose carbon because these things are supposed to be black. So either you make it out of fiberglass with a tint resin in it, which I could have done, or paint it black. But I think because it's visible on the sides from the bike, I think if I do it in carbon, it will look very smart. So anyway, let's see how this process goes. So I have to now put release agent on the airbox. Once I've got release agent, then I will just use this matte fiberglass. I will be making it with just a polyester resin. This is for the mold, and I will place it on here, and then I'll just stick it in a vacuum bag just to hold it down. So once I've done all that, I'll show you how it looks. I'm not going to go through the process on video about sticking fiberglass and that sort of stuff on. There's plenty of videos on YouTube of people with far better knowledge than me who can show you far better how to do fiberglass. So I know how to do a bit, but I'm by no means an expert. I should finish this off neater, but once I've got the fiberglass on here and I remove this half of the mold, it will be far easier on the mold to give it a smoother finish before proceeding further with the airbox mold. Okay, well, I'll catch you all when I've done this first part of the mold. So this is the mold now in the vacuum bag. So obviously I just use plain simple chopped strand glass for the mold. I made it quite thick along the edges as well,
This is just an old cheapo vacuum bag that you use with a normal vacuum cleaner. There's no need for precision fancy vacuum bags here. So this will do the job. The nice thing about the vacuum bag is it keeps everything firmly in the corners and everything. So as I said, I use polyester resin here. So we'll let this cure, and when it's finished curing, maybe tomorrow sometime, I will pull it out and show you. Well, here's the first half of the mold, and I've popped it out the airbox now. So I still have to remove this on the end here. It will just all break off and stuff, so that shouldn't be a problem. So let me clean it up, and then I will bring you back as to what's the next part of the process. So I've completed my mold here. As you can see, this piece goes here, and then I've got a piece that goes here on top of there, and this piece goes to that side, and this piece goes to this side. So the next process will be to lay up some carbon fiber in there and see how it comes out. If anyone's curious on why I made a 3-piece mold for the top, let's just see if I put them like that instead of just a 2-piece bottom and the top. So I've divided the top, and the reason being, if I get the airbox, so here's the original airbox, and as you can see, there's a seam line along the outside. I don't want the seam line. So the 2 parts of the airbox that's going to be visible is the outsides there, and I have decided, by making the airbox the way in the manner which I did, I can now lie the carbon fiber in that side and lie it inside that side, so that I do not get a seam line on the outside, what is visible. Instead, the seam line will be along here, which is inside the frame. You don't see it. And then once I finish lying it, then I'll put this piece in there. So it's still have to determine how well it's going to work. I have to work this airbox a bit now. The original airbox, I never did anything to it. I didn't want to modify anything. This that you see in here is still a bit of the release agent that's still stuck in there. I have to wash it off. So the airbox mold I made, I'm not going to stress too much about it. There's a little bit of imperfections here and there. I will use a little bit of Bondo just to fix up here and there. You can see there, it's got the original plastic lining marks and so on. I'm not going to worry about that. When I put the fiberglass in there, the first layer, I'll use quite a thick layer of epoxy just to coat everything, and then I'll let it cure to about 80% or something before actually start laying up the carbon fiber. By doing it that manner, I will have a decent thick layer of epoxy there, which I can sand down and polish accordingly. So I think it should work that way, but I'll have to give it a bash and try and see how it works out. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Right, so next process with my mold. I've taken the mold, I sprayed PVA in it, and that's section 2, and then I bolted them together. Now the idea is I'm going to lay my carbon fiber. As you can see, I've got my carbon fiber here. 1 layer carbon fiber and probably 2 layers of just brown fiberglass material. I will lay in more epoxy. Fiberglass, I'll work it in on the sides over there and on this part. So the idea I've got with how to go about this. My idea basically is I'm going to lay the fiberglass on here, the carbon fiber and the fiberglass, and then I'll trim it to exactly the size once it's cured to a certain degree. Over here I'll lay the carbon fiber and fiberglass, and I'll overlap it in the ends a bit, so that when I put this piece in there, the overlaps will fold in. I'm planning to use, this is just a thin plastic packet. Once I've laid fiberglass in here, I will put the packet in there, and I will pull the exit out through here. I will then assemble the mold once I've got everything, and then I'll lightly put some air pressure inside here, so that basically it bubbles up inside there and pushes all the carbon fiber and fiberglass properly into the mold. There'll be a very light air pressure. So let's see how it goes. This is my first time around doing something like this. I'd be interested if anybody else has got any knowledge on how to make enclosed molds like this. For me, it's a learning curve. Mistakes will be made and lessons will be learned, but I will not get anything right without trying. Anyway, I'll bring you guys back once, maybe 1 or 2 times through the process. Okay, well, not much to see here. I've made the 2 parts and I shoved it in a vacuum bag. My original idea of joining the 2 halves all sounded like a good idea in my head. But when I started doing everything, I realized how messy, and it's just not going to work. It was a good idea in my mind, but so I've made the 2 molds as you saw them. I will let this cure now. Once it's cured, I will remove them from the molds, trim them off, and then I'll just epoxy the 2 parts together. Once I've drilled all the holes in for the inlets and everything else, I will also be able to fiberglass them from the insides. So there shouldn't be a problem for having a good seal and getting a very good box. But my original idea clearly didn't work. So I got my parts out the molder now. Unfortunately, the mold damaged a bit in the process of pulling stuff out. It wasn't easy, but here's the end result. Obviously got this release agent I need to get off here. So I will soak it in water now to get that off, and then I will take a grinder or something and just trim the parts off. Here's my other part. Same thing, I've got the release agent all over the show here still. So I will pull it off, but all in all, surface looks quite good. I think a nice polish and it will look great. So I'll bring you back once again once I've finished cleaning these parts up. Right, so I've basically trimmed the airbox out. The original, the new one. I've cut the holes out correctly, and if you compare the backs, the original, that part fits perfectly on there very nicely. Even the little drain hole came out quite nice. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some tape in the inside. I'll just run some epoxy down the seams. Once that's cured, then I'll flip it over, remove the tape, and then on the inside I will put a bit of a strip of fiberglass in the inside of epoxy and seal it off completely. Right, so here's the airbox now as progresses. I've taken the back section and attached it. So on the inside you can't see it, but anyway, I lay strips of carbon fiber in the insides to basically glue this down. I'm going to give the outside a quick sanding along the joints here, and then just fill the little gaps here with resin. And once that's obviously all cured and that, then it will all be ready for a final sanding down and a polishing But yeah, let's see how it goes. I'm very pleased with how it actually has come out. Right, so here's the final product now. It's still far from perfect, but I think it looks pretty grand. So the parts that's are visible is obviously the outside and the outside. So I basically, after I finished making it, I made a few bugger ups. I sanded it down and then I coated it with another layer of epoxy, which caused a little bit of issues. I should never have done that, but I did it anyway, so lesson learned. So it came out quite well still, and after I gave it another layer of epoxy, I eventually, like I said, it messed it up a bit. I ended up giving it one final sanding, flattening, and now actually clear coated with normal vehicle 2K finish. If I go in quite close, you can see there is some little fine pinhole bubbles around the spots, but I don't care about that because that's inside. You'll never see it. The outsides are pretty much as good as it will ever be, the visible parts. So I made a mess up over here too. I sanded it down too much, so I went right through the carbon fiber, but fortunately that's not visible. Anyway, so I think that's where this video is going to end. I'm going to make another one, another airbox. I'm going to use this one on the 400, and then I'm going to make another one for the 350. I already repaired my mold, so from the lessons I learned from this one, I think my next one should be even better. So yes, like I said, I'm going to end the video there then. I'm not going to show the process of making a second one, but you'll probably see it sometime in the actual video of assembling the bike. I will show what it looks like when I get to that point. But anyway, hope you all enjoyed watching this. Maybe it's some useful tips for anybody wanting it. Maybe somebody can give me some useful tips on how to do these things a bit better. I'm always ready to learn where I can and improve things. It was quite fun making this. I must be honest about it. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up or subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Yeah, until the next video. Cheers.